Okay, it is 9:01. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everyone to November 14th, 2023 Sage 100 User Group Live webcast. Today, myself, Chris Mindrink, Partner Director here at DWD, and Mary Hildinger have come together to show you what's out there, what's coming, answer questions to the best of our ability, and really provide a lot of what we feel is valuable information for all clients and prospects of Sage 100. So how do you participate to submit questions? There is a question box in GoToWebinar. Mary is monitoring that question box. She will interrupt me as time goes to answer questions potentially. She may just answer them directly in the chat. So if you have questions at any time, please feel free to use that, and we'll do our best to get you the answers. If you need CPE credit for attending this, you may email Leah Peters at the email address on the screen. In the subject line, put CPE credit, and she will work to get you that. And her email address is lpeters@dwdtechgroup.com. So agenda day, welcome, right? That's what we're doing right now. What's new and what's on the horizon. So we're going to kind of go back and look at a couple of previous versions, what they've added. We're going to look at the 2023 version. We're going to look at what we've got from Sage and what to expect in the 2024 version. Then we're going to go into something that we've seen a lot of clients implementing over the last couple of years, and that's warehouse and production automation using scanning devices to collect transactional information from the warehouse out on the floor, be it receipt of goods, picking, shipping, labor transactions, material issues, completions, etc. So for everyone that doesn't have that tool and is interested, ScanForce will be here with us to walk you through that, give you an overview. But again, it's a tool that we have seen a lot of success with over the last few years. Sage Inventory Advisor, great tool if you want to get into in-depth analytics on your inventory and its movement. They will be here to show you how that tool works with Sage 100. It's one of the cloud-connected options with Sage 100. And then Sage AP Automation will also be here at the end to give you an overview of their tool and how that makes that AP invoice approval process so much smoother. And again, I think that's one of these tools we typically look back over the last couple of years to say, hey, what are clients using, purchasing, and those are three of the probably the biggest ones that we've had over the last few years. Oh, a little bit about us. So myself, as I mentioned, Chris Mindrink, Mary Hildinger. Miss Mary, I know you're here.
Good morning, everybody.
So Miss Mary has joined us this morning to assist in going through this with me, answering questions, etc. David, Rick, Brad, Michael, you probably recognize those four in some way. They've been with us for a long time, very experienced, very knowledgeable. And just looking at who's attending, I recognize a lot of the names. That means you've worked with a lot of them. We've got some new team members that have joined. Chris Busak has joined the group to work on reporting and integrations and different things like that to assist our clients. And then Byron Harrison has joined DWD Tech Group, kind of as a full range implementer with a lot of background in the Sage 100 space. And then Con Skembos, who many of you have worked with over the years as you need things, Sage AP Automation, Sage Inventory Advisor, things like that. He helps provide and coordinate schedules accordingly. Our team As you can see, there's a group of us, but David Overholt in our group wins the prize. Years with Sage 100 is 27. So it's kind of interesting, as I believe that might be more years than Christopher in our group is old. So, but we won't tell David I said that. Joking, he would laugh. Miss Mary comes in tied for second there. 24 years, Miss Mary. 27 years with DWD. So I would say that Mary has a little experience with Sage 100. Did you work with it in the days of the green screen?
I did not. I
Okay.
think 3.4 was the first version to which I was introduced.
3.4, wow. We actually ran into a company that was on 3.7 a couple months ago. So yeah, those are still out there. Brad Prather, Rick Huddleston, again, just a lot of time and experience out there on our team. And so we're all here trying our best to provide the assistance you need. You're open or able to reach out to any of us at any time. One thing I want to point out is, back on this slide, is the email address, sagesport@dwdtechgroup.com. It's a great way to get support if you're unsure who to contact, because every team member, has a specialty. But if you're not sure, use sagesport@dwdtechgroup.com, because that actually hits the whole team for us to kind of look at and judge and try to pass it to the most available or best person to handle it. Our history, we've been around since 1990, 3 different locations. We got staff 65, but 28 of us are focused in the technology side of the business. Software and business consulting is predominantly what we do. The manufacturing distribution space for the Sage 100 is predominantly what we specialize in. And we've been recognized as in the top 100 VARs in the United States. The software solutions we support, Sage 100, obviously, number one, we're a development partner. So David Overholt, as I've mentioned, he's a master developer. So he can actually go in and overwrite Sage code. We try not to, but he can. Another big one that we've seen a lot of success in a certain space is our Sage Intacct solution. This is a cloud solution. If your business is a multi-entity AR, AP, GL focused company, right? Sage Intacct is the solution for you. And I'm saying that to even people that are on Sage 100, but if that's your business, your next step logically is Sage Intacct. We have been now implementing, supporting it for 4 years. We've got a team on that side as well of 5 individuals. That's what they work on day in and day out. Targets, typically not-for-profit, restaurants, companies that have multiple DBAs under them, different things like that. So very different product than Sage 100. In that Sage 100 specialty is really the distribution and manufacturing space. Sage Business works Sage 50. Miss Mary works some with both of those, has for many years. Those are the kind of lower tier below Sage 100 applications. Typically, those are the people that are transitioning up to Sage 100 often because of limitations in the software, the size. I mean, there's just a multitude of things, integrations, etc. We get into Sage Fixed Assets. Miss Mary just worked very, very hard to go through a humongous certification process, again, for Sage on that. They had people recertify 80 plus hours in-person training, etc. And so Sage Fixed Assets, a great tool if you need to track that. Miss Mary can provide you all kinds of information around that. Sage CRM, we definitely have used that at many of clients over the years. It's an integrated CRM for Sage 100. And if there's an interest there, typically myself, Byron, would be someone you would reach out and we could provide you more information. Software services. So what do we do, right? training, support, customizations, financial report writing, work you through how to, barcode systems or, production or warehouse management, scanning, efficiency, integrations with websites, integrations with business intelligence tools outside of things like Sage Intelligence, right? Power BI, Sage Alerts and Workflow. So we really try to provide full service around Sage 100. Our network service team, if you have needs on that side, they are the group to talk to get set up with like managed services to manage your laptops, your servers, your network, especially in today's world where, ransomware and all those types, cybersecurity is in the news. Just everything you can try to do to be more ahead of the game, the better, and using a group such as ours to help protect the network, help you use tools like KnowBe4 to train your users not to click links in emails. All those types of things are services our network team provides. They'll sit down with you, go through all the different areas where they see potential exposure and give you kind of best practices on how to, mitigate those things. Big webinar. Typically, Mary has a lot of people attending this one. So it's a free webinar, December 6th, 2023, 1 to 3, the year-end closing and payroll year-end closing webinar. Very popular every year. So get that, that is out there, get registered for attendance. So let's get to the meat and potatoes. So first thing that I always talk about every year is the idea site. And I bring this up, and you're going to see me bring it up again at the end, because Miss Mary, you helped put slides together. What percentage do you think, roughly, was ideas from this idea site?
Just looking through the notes, I would say at least a good 30% or more of enhancements that have been added to Sage 100 were as a result of requests made by end users through this idea site.
Right. So it is highly important if you have ideas, or if you go out there and look at people's ideas and you vote on them, this idea site is being monitored by Sage. And it is key to them understanding what they need to do. We provide feedback all the time. We meet with them, we get in their developer roundtables, etc. But they also look at this and say, what are people voting on? So I highly recommend everyone attend that. Or go to that website, register, get set up. All right, so here we go. We're going to start going through all the stuff that's been added, but we've in 21, 22, 23, etc. But we always point this one out, especially if you are on a version older than Sage 100 2020 and you're upgrading. This is a very important one, because this is the one that always takes a screen like customer maintenance, sales order, and if you have custom fields on it, you do an upgrade, you go look at the screen and fields are out of place, hidden behind other fields, etc. The reason? That's the reason. Because if you notice, it's saying that they've expanded field names to 50 characters, so they made them wider, they've expanded the spacing of them. Well, that messes with the screens, and if you've customized your screens, Sage is trying to put its stuff in place, and it has to be cleaned up, right? So this is a big one just to be aware of, especially if you're doing an upgrade from 2019, 2018, 2017, whatever it is, that, hey, this is the reason those screens get messed up. On the sales order, it's the second tab, which is the address tab. You got billing and ship to, right? And those are the tabs they've kind of flipped from. If you remember, back in the day, on the left would be the billing address, and on the right of that tab would be the shipping address, and now the billing address is across the top and the shipping address is across the bottom. So again, things moved to accommodate the expanded fields. Also allows for other countries to be involved with the zip code, mapping to provinces, etc. So a great addition, but also something that during upgrades just to be aware of. We saw this company maintenance type get added, and why this is important to understand is the option that's shown in the slide is allow delete override live archive companies, because this allows you to block someone from accidentally copying a backup company over a live or archive company. And we wouldn't bring it up if it hasn't happened. And therefore, that means this has happened. And people have done this in the past where someone goes in and wants to make a copy of the live company into a test company and reverses it. And now all of a sudden your live company's missing data, right? Because you copied the backup over it, or the test or archive or whatever. So very important little feature. We like to point out, you want to make sure it's set up. They did small changes with things such as increasing check numbers, what user is displayed in the preferences for the system config, like, hey, when I'm looking at a screen or report footers, et cetera, is it showing the username, login, whatever it is. And then the most recent thing, 64-bit version of Sage 100 is now available. In the past, we've tried to not install that because of compatibility issues. We are starting to install it, mainly driven by a Windows 11 issue that has presented itself. But it wasn't until the last couple of months that if you had a very integrated system with websites and all kinds of stuff, that Sage had their 64-bit ready for all those integrations. So we've seen service packs released to fix issues that were present, and we're slowly starting to recommend people consider switching. The process is simple, but you do have to go through a conversion, essentially. So we run this thing after we get it up to whatever version we're upgrading it to, say, hey, we want to convert from 32-bit to 64-bit. And then every workstation kind of does a workstation sync, and they become 64-bit versions of Sage 100. Again, the biggest hurdle we've seen is integration. So typically we want to test it if you're an integrated system. Oh, we've added things to accounts payable, open invoice, paid utility. So this goes in and fixes. Sometimes you'll notice like you can't pay an AP invoice and it's saying that there's no balance, etc. Well, that fixes it because something's gone wrong, a power outage, it lost network connection. So therefore it thinks it was paid, but it wasn't. So that utility can fix it. And then they added some DBA name and address fields for 1099 forms. You get into the library master default form maintenance. This is a small one, but useful one. You can go in and define for sales order, for purchase order, for invoices, what is the default form code everybody should be using instead of having to guess. And you can do it by user, by role, but you can control it as an admin in the system if you so wish. Oh, small changes, the AR recall invoice history when I'm creating a credit memo. So again, it's a shortcut. You don't have to rekey in everything when you're doing credit memos, so that's great. Bank rec, right, excluding wire transfer from a positive pay export. Again, a small little thing in 21. More small changes with inventory management. When you do a transaction date search, you know, in the options it's saying, hey, what is the range you want to use? Custom Office added things for us to be able to edit the columns and the grid headers more, right? And make two-line grid headers. So why that's important is because those grid headers could get long if you wanted a longer description. Now it's harder to see that on the screen if someone's entering a sales order and the fields are pushed over, et cetera. Role maintenance. Over the last 3 versions, role maintenance has had a lot of different little changes added to it. Search functions, different area on the menu, separation of roles, copying of roles, many different things like that. So if you have to do the role maintenance at your company, if that's something that you work on, it's something on the newer versions to go in and look at and know that there's new features to make it easier, because there's so many options when it comes to setting up roles. Clicking that search button helps you find, I could type, sales order and see everything related to a sales order, etc. OAuth was added to the newer version. This is important for email protocol exchange because everyone, Outlook, Gmail, all of them are going to this OAuth idea. Right now, this last year, they were deprecating an old TLS version, et cetera, and they're all pushing towards this OAuth. And so you've seen that communication from us and Sage many of times. Oh, paperless office, purchase order. So paperless office, there's a log button has been added to different tasks. The purchases has a clearing from history report. I know that was something that in the past was missing. So that was a great little add-in, seeing a purchases clearing from history report. The PO receipt of invoice lines now appear on the lines tab when viewing history. It was always odd to me that it wasn't there. They've definitely added that in as well. More small changes when it comes to sales orders, suppressing prompts on reports, because I don't know about you, but like I'll do demos and I'll do things and there's all these recaps and I keep saying no, no, no. I can just go in and turn them all off, right? And I really probably should do that. VI, there's a lot more logging in the newer version. So if you're big into using Visual Integrator, a lot more logging is available to you. It also has a side effect. If you have VI jobs that you run and automate often, those log files can grow and grow and grow and eat up drive space. So that's just something to be aware of. In accounts payable, again, small changes all related to the 1099 form, DBAs, and their address, etc. Okay. Moving to 2022, they added a public favorites group. So where that can be useful is everybody has favorites. I can drag favorites and make my own little favorites list, but I can make a public one that everybody can go to and it's always there, right? And so if you have roles defined within your company, like here's the AR team, here's the work order team, here's the purchasing team, technically you can make public favorites by groups. And then when someone new joins or whatever, you could basically say, hey, just use this public favorite and it's got everything you do in it, right? So that's a nice little feature they added. This is a big one because it does also relate to something down the road that we're seeing in 2024 being an option. But this is exclude inactive items from lookups. So one of the things I get into companies and into systems and I go into item maintenance and I do a lookup, or I'm in sales order entry and I do a lookup because I'm going to test something. Why is this happening? Why is that happening? And I'm picking items and it's like, that's inactive and that's inactive and that's inactive. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? Well, it's great that we can inactivate items, but if we don't take those items out of the lookups, it can make data entry a little bit frustrating. So they've added features in 2022 that if you, such as inactivate an item, and then in your preferences tab of company maintenance, you say display inactive items off or on, right? It'll hide those items from the lookups. That can be very useful. And the note on this slide, if you didn't see it, says it came from the Ideas website, right? So back to that website at the very beginning that I recommend everybody go to, set up a user, put ideas in. These are the reasons why, right? Because these are the kind of things that we say it. If you say it, then that's two groups saying it and they listen. Save date selections on reports. So if you have reports that you're constantly going in and putting dates in, it does now save them to the forms. I don't know if anyone's ever noticed, but like if your report setting is standard, okay, you make changes to the options, you hit print preview. It doesn't really save those changes to those checkboxes. But if you have a custom report setting and you say uncheck back orders on your open sales order report, and let's say you have a custom one, the next time you go in, it does save that, right? So custom forms save the values within that area here. Standard forms don't save, but they did add the option to save the dates. And another little thing that sometimes I don't think people realize, and this was added a little while ago, but this keep window open after print and preview. So I often use that on the preview side, especially if I'm trying to modify a crystal report, right? I'll modify it, I'll run it, I'll make sure that preview is checked so that window doesn't close on me, and then I can go back in and modify it again. But if you're running the same report more than once, looking for something or whatever, right here at the bottom, there's a little checkbox say, keep window open after preview. Item image upload was improved, just adding more file types that can be uploaded into that. I have to say in my customer base, I don't see that used a ton, but it does get used. So it's nice that they added just more file types that work with it. Sales order years to retain history. So this is kind of an important one, not just for what the feature is, but for everyone to kind of take a moment and look through their options in their modules and look at the history tab and look to see what your history settings are, right? Because there are functions, if you're doing period end, different things like that, that look at these settings and then move data from the, let's say, open invoice table in AR. If the balance is 0, it actually stays in the open invoice table based on a setting for so long. What a lot of people don't realize is in customer maintenance on the invoice tab, that tab is the open invoice table. So if an invoice gets paid based on a setting, if you do period end, it will take that invoice and put it into invoice history, so you don't lose it. But at the same time, it drops off the invoice tab on customer maintenance because it's no longer an open invoice. It's not in that table anymore. Well, there's a setting in AR in the history for options on how long to retain $0 open balance invoices. That's what it's related to. In sales order, they changed the default to 5 years. Doesn't affect your current system. If you already had it, it's not changing it. But I'd like to bring this up because I think everyone should be aware that these settings exist and that you should go into your Sage 100 and look at them and have an understanding of what they are, what they do. That's a great time, if you're unsure, to reach out to our group so that someone like Mary, Rick, Byron, David, someone can kind of walk through those with you and explain what they do and how they work. Sales order history inquiry, added fields for order type and ship date, an expire date for quotes to the screen. So they added some fields to track a little bit more information in the history tables. Useful for reporting. Item maintenance, a little thing if you do sales order quoting, because quoting doesn't put demand on a product, right? If I go into Sage 100, I enter a sales order, and I've got a quote, then I know when I go in and look at my quantity on sales order, it's not going to have the quantity I just put on that quote in it. But they added on the orders tab and sales order, if you select that option to see it, they added a field for quoted so that at least you can see how many you do have quoted out there, right? So it's not true demand. It doesn't affect your quantity available, any of those things, but it becomes something that you can see when you're looking at an item. This was a big one. So the work order module is no longer available in Sage 100 2022 and higher. Sage is saying you must convert to Sage 100 production management. A lot of our clients have moved to production management, and There's only a select few out there that still have work order. Sometimes that's just due to some special process or customization they have, etc. That they just need to work through to switch to production management. But a lot of our clients have made that leap from work order to production management and haven't looked back, right? Production management's in the new framework. It's got the ability to add custom fields and scripting and add more logic to the process. There's little things in it that make things flow better, such as in the old work order module, you had to do a transaction to release the work ticket or work order, right? Well, a work ticket is just released by changing the status of the dropdown to released, right? So little things like that that can make a good impact on a lot of companies. Also, with the new production management, it allows us to programmatically interact with it. And that's important because if you have other systems that may track material issue or different transactions like that, it makes it much easier for us to reach out to those systems, grab data, write it into the production management module. And on that, we saw a lot of enhancements in 2022 and honestly in 2023. A lot of it was focused on enhancing production management. Okay, so little things, if you were in production management in 19, 20, 21, you don't have to click the copy from button anymore. That was a process step that, hey, I want to make this item, copy from the bill of material or copy from the work ticket template or copy from another work ticket. You don't have to do that. By default, it will copy from, based on setup options, either the bill of material or a work ticket template. But you still can copy from work orders or work ticket history. A lot of the fields were brought into the main screen. They've added the memos, so you can enter memos on work tickets. The issue method is drop downs. I mean, there were little things that they added on top of the bigger things. Layout changes. You can get to item maintenance. You can get to alias. And I don't think a lot of people have realized this. A lot of times in Sage 100, when you're on the lines tab, you're on a line, you can sometimes right-click and navigate to item maintenance, item inquiry, other related areas of Sage 100 to what you clicked on. And also these little buttons at the top, they're always worth investigating to know what they are. Because here I can click on that and go to item maintenance when I'm on a line. So again, all these little shortcuts to get you to places much more effectively. While it was added to production management, a lot of this exists in purchase order, in sales order, things like that. So if you aren't aware of it, know that those are things and little tricks that you can do. They made changes to how you enter employees, related pay rates. And if you ever saw the other screen, it was much smaller. It just wasn't laid out as well. The new screen, much better. Social security number, different things like that. Those are all things that are in the back end encrypted. Back in 2020, I want to say, 2021, there was features added around encrypting sensitive data. Often PII is what it's often referred to. So like if I go look at the database, like a social security number for this employee number would be not readable. It's all encrypted, right? So they've definitely added like security features in the background related to sensitive information, not just production management, but also payroll and different areas like that. Excuse me. Time entry layouts were changed to make it more of a line entry thing. The previous screen was more one-by-one entry. This line entry system, just easier to read, easier to work with. If you have a ScanForce system, let's say, that's writing labor transactions into here, I mean, if you're doing labor, technically you should let it stop in the ScanForce management console, fix all your labor entries there, because it's just easy to do over there, and then approve them and send them to Sage 100. But even then, if let's say that you missed something, at least you can still come in here and see it and edit it before you post it, unless you have the auto post feature turned on. But these grids have helped make that a cleaner process for entry and maintenance. I mentioned the user-defined information, so they've added fields for it. They've added kind of what I would call pre-set up fields as well. So like here's an example. I'm adding a field to the stats to capture information on an activity, right? So it's these user-defined info codes. And so it's a great way to easily add without having to set up a new field necessarily, right? So just a little feature add that they did. Item maintenance inquiry, this was a good one. Using production management, they added work ticket and required for work ticket on the quantity tab. And they added it here so I can see them all, right? So a lot more information came forward into these grids and item maintenance and allowed us to show it on the screen. Where used, inquiry, right? Again, better breakdown, and then they worked on the payroll integration. You don't have to run a report anymore to push labor entries into the payroll module if you use that for data entry, right? So there's a way to click a button to cycle it through, pull out the labor transactions out of production management and make them all related to labor. Then they added in 2022, it is now possible to migrate work order history into the production management history. This was not an option back in 2019, 2020, and 21. You just left the old work order module behind, right? But they did add in 2022 the ability to migrate all that history into the production management tables. If you have a lot of work order history, we've experienced where this does take some time. So you have to plan, do a test run, and kind of watch how long it takes to know what that upgrade is going to look like time-wise for planning purposes. If you do or did link your purchase orders to work orders, you'll have to relink them again. They gave us a tool in one of the releases here down the slides that actually will do that for us, right? So they did end up building the tool for that. IRP, they added it back in 2022.1. They added the project demand, or demand, maintain projected demand, not project demand, but projected demand feature. So you can put an item code in, a warehouse code, the year, planning cycle, and then what you think the demand will be, right? So it's a way to get the projected demand into IRP. Accounts receivable, just a print option, zero balance customers, no invoices when you're doing statement printing has been added. Again, DBA name, 1099 forms, etc. A lot of information collected around the whole 1099 process has been improved. This is the slide that I think Mary looked at me and laughed and said, "Oh, you won't understand all this." And she's not too far from being wrong. This is a lot of the 1099 tax form reporting, making sure that the forms have the information they need captured in Sage 100. Okay, and so they did do a big update in the 2022.3 release to make sure that they got all those forms updated.
Well played, Chris.
Yeah. Work ticket entry copy from. So with 2022, the original release, right, they don't make you use the copy from button. But if you do, there's been some stuff added to simplify finding the work ticket, what you want to copy it, what's the quantity you want to use, what's the production start date. So just enhance that copy from feature to gather more details as you do the copy process. Next lot number. So this was a idea site, if I remember right, this next lot number thing. So you can go into different screens and say that I want to issue a lot number to this distribution, and it will just grab the next one from the item and item maintenance, right? So if I'm in inventory management and saying I'm doing an inventory adjustment, receipt, whatever, and I'm getting a lot I'm putting in stock, well, I can say, hey, just use the next lot number in Sage, and it will increment it accordingly, so that if you also make the item in bill of material or work ticket or whatever, and it's using lot and serial, it will just use the next one. Like it stays in order, which is great. It used to be a two-step process. You have to, go in, enter it, do the inventory adjustment, go to the item maintenance, change the next lot number. They've added options to summarize material lines in work order. So again, that's an entry. It's an option. Summarize the material lines by step and item. Comment checkboxes have been added, different things like that. So again, what you're seeing is there's been a lot of push on this release, the next one a little bit more, to get production management where, ooh, no, don't hit that button. So that is my apologies. I just hit the end button on my keyboard instead of the next button. So give me 1 second to flip us back. So let's from current slide, we'll catch back up here. By the way, if you're doing PowerPoint presentation and you hit the end button on your keyboard, it will take you to the end of the PowerPoint slides. All right, here we are back in business. All right, 2023, what have they done here so far? So one, an information desktop change, an information page, right? So they've made it much more in your face to know that you can go out, there's learning resources, there's a customer portal, they're prompting you on what's new, what's been added, there's the links to the marketplaces, all kinds of content that they're delivering to you in that, and it's good content. Sage City or Community, I believe they've named it more recently. It's a great place to go to see what other people have posted, questions, answers, right? It's users, it's resellers, it's programmers, it's everybody, and it's Sage 100. It's got a whole area. There's a wealth of knowledge in it. I mean, I use it from time to time. I run into something, I don't recognize what it is, right? And I've been doing this 13 years. I'm like, what the world? So I'll go out and search Sage City, I'll search Sage's knowledge base. Like I use every resource available to see if someone's run across something. They added a recent tab to the ribbon. So again, sometimes little things that I'm like, oh, that's awesome. That's very nice, because then if you're someone like me, who obviously clicks the wrong keys on his keyboard from time to time, right? And you accidentally close the screen, I don't have to go through and navigate. If my recent tab is at the top, I'll just click the sales order button, the purchase order, the inventory item maintenance, whatever it is, right? It's just a little feature that was added to keep track of your most recent areas you've been. They expanded tooltips. So when you highlight over something, it will tell you more about it. Then it also keeps the last active tab when you log in. Probably a little thing you probably never noticed, but let's say I had my recent tab open because I love that feature and I use it, or my favorites tab and I love and use it. If you close Sage and go back in, that wasn't the tab that was put forward. You had to click on it, so now it does persist. Installation changes, probably not as big of a thing for you guys, but there is a nice caveat in all of this. 2023 made it optional to what version of Sage 100 to install. And this is always a question, what are the, why are there different versions? What is the difference? So Sage 100 Standard is kind of the entry level Sage 100 in the technology stack it's using to run. So it's more like a big access database that's sitting on your network. It does all the processing of the data on your local machine. The server is just holding the files out there. It's like Excel, right? You put an Excel file on the network, multiple people can get into it, right? But it's all processing on your local machine. When you go to advanced and premium, it turns into what's called client server, where it requests data from the server or it sends data to the server to process. The server does the work, right? And the difference between advanced and premium has to do with the back end of the database. So the back end being a ProvideX database, which is what advanced comes with, right? Or if you purchase Microsoft SQL Server, Sage 1 Premium converts from a ProvideX to use the Microsoft SQL Server database. People that are going to Microsoft SQL Server are typically going there because integrations and BI reporting. Because SQL Server is very well adopted in the world, a lot of tools interact with it, etc. Right? It just comes with an extra cost because you need to purchase Microsoft SQL Server licensing, right? Where the ProvideX database, Sage's native database, comes with it at no extra charge. And you can connect a Microsoft SQL Server instance to a ProvideX database through what we call a link server. So it doesn't make it so you can't use SQL Server to pull data, to record and interact with data from Sage, right? But Microsoft SQL Server puts everything inside of one solution. And they made it so we don't have to ask for new license keys. We can kind of just choose as we install which flavor we are installing. What's important to understand is as you go up, you can't really go down, right? So when you get up to advanced and you think, I want to go to premium, we have a conversation about what the differences are for an upgrade, because it does make it a difference. And then once we do the upgrade, you can't go from premium back to advanced, right? Because they are just completely different technologies on the back end. But it's nice that they gave us the option. We no longer have to go through hoops to get license keys, etc. Again, if you have a system, you don't use Sage CRM, which was always a weird thing that Sage had us always install this integration engine, even if someone didn't use Sage CRM, right? So from the idea side, from resellers, partners, et cetera, they simplified and took this out so that you didn't have to install this service on your server if you don't use that tool. And then if you want to later, you can go in and add the service, et cetera. When you are doing data entry, so here's a great example of SO invoice data entry. The item code, and I'm trying to select my serial numbers, you'll notice that it now allows me to select a range of serial numbers, right? Starting from, ending from. So I don't necessarily have to select each individual one. If they are together in a grouping, then I have the ability to select that range and distribute accordingly. Sounds great. Not always practical. If you have 10 completely random different serial numbers, right, then you're still going to have to enter them or use a scanner or something. But if they all are in a logical order, then this would save a lot of data entry time. We're going back to that conversation we just had about history tab. So here you can see years to retain customer history, years to retain salesperson history. You can also see years to retain cash receipt history. Do we retain history in detail? So you'll notice there's just so many options, and a lot of us over time have used Sage 100 for years upon years, and we just don't give thought to this. Well, I'm just really recommending everyone take a moment to give thought to it, and check these settings and see if they align to what you want them to be. And again, reach out if you have questions. The activity log's been updated. It's a great tool. It takes a little while to run sometimes because it tries to log all kinds of information. You can put filters on it. Lets you say who logged in, who's things that have happened. You know, we've used it to look at, did someone run period in? Did someone do an import job? Like, you can see all kinds of information in this activity log. If someone goes in and purges information out of Sage, well, there's a log entry that says that, you know, person ABC went in and purged this information. So again, very useful, and they keep updating it to make it a little bit more useful. And it talks about the activity log is updated with a list of inactive vendors and customers that were removed. If the remove inactive customers utility is run. iShip. So this was drama in the last 6-8 months. If you use the tracking option, so let's say you have a tracking number that you've put into the tracking table in Sage, you go into it, you click the button, and it was for, well, 12 years that I've been around, it would take you to this iShip site and show you the shipping information based on the tracking number, etc. Well, one day it kind of stopped working. And come to find out that the group that owned this iShip website, which not just Sage used, I mean, the kinds of companies used it, one day decided that they were no longer going to do it. So everybody scrambled. Initially, we wrote our own script to do almost exactly what this is doing. But they've updated Sage now to have that built in, where if you click it, it'll use that tracking number and feed it in to the browser. And if it doesn't recognize the carrier, it takes you to the browser and shows you Google search with that package ID. But ultimately, it tries to look at that tracking number structure and say, is this U.S. Postal Service, UPS, FedEx, whatever, right? And put you to their respective websites with that tracking number. So a nice little fix that was added and improved. Crystal Reports. So this is an important one. 2023 did jump up to Crystal Reports 2020. There's a link in the slides. Everybody got the slides and tells you kind of what's new. The previous version was 2016. But I think the most important thing that I'm going to mention on here is that Crystal Reports 2020 is now 64-bit. Where this comes into play is if it is reading to any 32-bit ODBCs. In the computer world, 64-bit and 32-bit do not play together in the sandbox well or on the playground. Each one tries to grab the kickball and run with it. And so if you have something such as Sage Alerts and Workflow, and it uses what's called a KLF, if it's uses the Access Database version, well, that Access Database is 32-bit, but Crystal Reports 2020 is 64-bit, so it can't see it. And so it can complicate that, and just being aware of that's going to be important so that we have a workaround, which is really keeping your Sage Crystal Reports 2016 installed somewhere to use it. But they did update that as well. Where this could also come into play, we've seen in upgrades, is that when you do a workstation install, you need to go through and uninstall all the Crystal Report runtimes. And if you have Sage 2016 Crystal Reports installed, uninstall it, so that when you run workstation install, it reinstalls the updated 32 and 64-bit ODB runtimes, and then you can install Crystal Reports 2023. That's really probably the roughest part with an upgrade that we've seen, is just remembering to uninstall the previous runtimes that are on a workstation, because not only does Sage use Crystal Reports, there are many other applications that use Crystal Reports. So if you have any other applications and they use Crystal Reports, we need to be aware of that and go through some sort of maybe testing, something to make sure that if Sage is using a newer Crystal Report, that your old program will still work with it. I have in the past ran into where someone has an application that's 10 years old, 15 years old, right? And if we install Crystal Reports, that application doesn't work anymore because it hasn't been updated you know, in 10 years, right? So it doesn't have the ability to work with these newer Crystal reports run times. So just being cognizant of that is important. Accounts payable. So a lot of masking, again, just so that only certain people can see and view this information. It became an option in the security tab in role maintenance to allow the viewing, printing, editing of this information. Okay, but again, they're masking it, they're hiding it. They're hiding it in the data tables on the back end. So if we pull data directly out through an ODBC or through anything, it is encrypted. It is not something that I can't get in there and look at someone's social security number anymore. It is no longer in the tables as a human readable information. Same with the accounting or routing numbers, right? Again, you can allow them to see it in Sage user interface. You cannot, right? You can use the asterisk to kind of block some of it out. And then in the back end, again, from my perspective on a technical side, I can't see that data because, again, it's all encrypted. This was one that I laughed at because I don't do a lot of work in accounts payable, but I know this one because I really never liked how this worked before. When you would go in to select invoices, you would like control click and select the different lines and they would turn blue and you'd like, okay, here's all the ones I want, right? In my mind, I'm thinking to myself, well, just add a checkbox so I can easily see which ones I've checked and don't have to hold the control key and, right? They added that. And again, this is one of those that I'm sure we've, you know, the resellers have mentioned, and then they see it in the idea site and they add it. Again, a little thing, but very functionally useful. Here's going to be a good one. The option to hide inactive warehouses. So you can turn or hide inactive warehouses in item maintenance and item inquiry on those grids. They've added a button, not to T's, but to T's. It, according to what is supposed to be coming, there's going to be a feature to remove warehouses. We'll get that. But this is at least a way to hide inactive warehouses. They have a remove inactive items utility. Okay, so they've added that to Sage as a utility to tell it to remove all items you've marked inactive. Now, they can only be marked inactive if you have no outstanding activity. If there's pending orders, open invoices, things like that, you can't remove those. Now, my caveat to this one is much like the other thing that we have, which isn't highlighted, but it's right here, delete and change items. We always want to do this in a test company first, because timing is everything. If you have a lot of history, years and years, decade, 15, 20 years of history, and you want Sage to run through every record and every table that's related to inventory and remove this item, right? That's great, but how long is it going to take? And so we always recommend we make a copy of the live company, we go into the test company, and we run these utilities and see how long they take to run, right? Based on our options, et cetera. Because maybe you've marked 2,000 items inactive, right? You want to get rid of them. Well, this utility, while it will do that, it may not be the right way for you, because if you've got a decade's worth of history, you run that, let's say it takes 2 days to run to do all that work, right? Or even a day. Well, then maybe that's not the best way to go about it. Our best way may be to use the delete and change items in order to delete the inactive items, but we do it in batches of them, right? We delete 10 at a time, 15 at a time, 20 at a time, like whatever makes logical sense to slowly remove those items from the system. Okay, option to show and hide zero quantities for lot items. So if you've got lot zero items and you don't want to see the zeros on the cost detail, you can click the button and it hides them all. it's pretty useful for, because I always, when I get into systems, sometimes I go to that tab and I look at things and there's all these zeros. I'm like, okay, so what's actually in stock?
Chris, excuse me for a second. I've got a question that might be worth bearing. It has been asked back on the previous slide, can you remove items not used in the last 2 years through this particular feature? You might want to expand on that. I think there are some caveats.
Yeah, I think it comes down to if you've marked those items inactive, right? So it's a query to say, hey, what items have I not sold in the last 2 years or used, right? Whatever that is to that company, right? Because if it's a component, it may be used in a bill of material, if it's something that you sell on a sales order, right? But either way, when was the last time this item was used? And so that's a query you can run and get that information, and then you decide what's my best course of action, right? Is it marking them inactive and then running the remove inactive items? It might be. Is it using the delete and change items to delete the items, right, in grouping? So like if I run in the last 2 years and I say, hey, anything, I only want everything that I have not used in the last 2 years. And all of a sudden I get 2,000 item codes, right? Well, I don't want to use remove inactive items probably, because that's probably going to take some time to run. And then delete change, I would probably then say, okay, let's put a batch of 100 in or 1,000 in, and let's see how long that takes to run, right? And let's just get a baseline, and then from there on, we now know for the rest of time, like it takes, you know, hey, this is our way of doing it, right? So can it be done? 100% can be done. The only thing that also to be aware of is when you go look at the history then of, be it invoices, be it, you know, production, inventory transactions, et cetera, the item's gone. Some people actually use change items and they put all the item codes to one called ZZ delete I've seen, or Z delete, so that it falls to the bottom of the list, because then at least you could still go look at something or print something and you know an item was used, but it was deleted, right? So I've seen it done a couple ways. Thanks, Mary. Okay, so we did that one. Let's go to here. Inventory requirements planning. So they've been putting a lot of work into improving this, adding fields to limit the query set. And it's important that they did that because it takes a long time for this potentially run, because it's got to look through all the demand in the system, be it a sales order, be it invoices, be it work tickets that are open, released, whatever it is, right? So they're adding fields to limit the data set so that then it can generate the information. They've added a feature, which I'm sure we'll get to schedule the automation of this, so you can run it at night when you're not there. Expanded summary and detail information. So if you use ERP, they've expanded on items of purchase, the option to view the different types of items, right, that have pending actions, etc. And the important one that I just mentioned, I knew it was in here, was the scheduling of ERP to be run at a certain time. And that's important. If you're a user of this and everybody's out by 6 o'clock, well, then you probably want to tell this thing to run at 7 so that it can run overnight, right? Because if you've got a lot of information in your system, and I mean, ERP can take hours to generate, right? I mean, smaller ones can generate real at a good pace, but again, it's one of those that you get in and test it and find your settings and then schedule it after hours. So when you come in the morning, it's ready for you. They expanded on the information when you look in ERPs. Like if you ever clicked on an item and you click the icon and said, hey, what makes up this decision, right? That, hey, I need to purchase this, right? It will tell you that a different information, right? The action taken, what date, and when it's required to meet the demand for each record. So just again, improving the detail that's provided with the IRP. It was added, they added more reports around it. So again, you're seeing Sage build out IRP, and you saw a lot of focus from Sage in 22 and 23 for production management and IRP to build out these functionalities. One of the things that gets asked for, but I will preface, is the scheduling feature for production management. I will say that it is a infinite demand-oriented scheduling, and it's based on capacity at workstations more so, and it's expecting you to put in a decent amount of information, and when are work centers closed, when are they open, what's the availability, and able to process. And it actually does give you like a red bar, green bar by workstation to say, hey, you know, you're going to be over capacity here, etc. Rick Huddleston in our group has played with it quite a bit. He would be the best one to work with if this is something you want to see. It is not meant to be one that like, hey, I've got a work order, I'm going to click and drag it over here and schedule it on the calendar. It's not what it is. It is more matching what work order used to do and saying that, hey, here's all your work centers, here's the demand running through them. Hey, this one's in red. That means you've got more going through it than what it can handle. So that at least lets you say, hey, maybe if I get more people to work in that area, we can, you know, get that red down to green and get more through it, etc. So it's really a capacity type scheduling tool. They've added an option in the work ticket to import material lines, quantity to issue. So if you're using dynamic material issue where you go into the work ticket itself and you type, I used 15 of this and 10 of this and 5 of this and whatever on the work ticket, which is the dynamic material issue, they now give you an option to import that information as well. And then the lot zero history has been added to the inquiry tab so that you can then see the lot zero history of things that you may have issued material-wise towards the job, right? And that wasn't readily available on the screen. You can purge work ticket history based on dates. Not something that at this point I don't think anybody's really using. I know once I had somebody accidentally run it. But know that that's out there. And then the work ticket template maintenance, if you're someone that uses templates to put items in, you now have the scrap percentage on the materials tab. If you're using bombs to produce the materials for a work ticket when you make an item, that was already there, but they added it to the work ticket templates for the people that using the templates is the right situation. Labor entry, so if you do capture punch in, punch out time for an employee, you can now select the department they worked in at the department no field. If it's different than the employee's assigned department, which is useful if you need to really start diving into what is each department, you know, who's working in that department, what are they doing, you know, things like that. Before, it would always just default to the employee's department. Now you can change it to point to a department. That employee is now working. So if they covered for a day for someone that was sick, whatever it is, right, you can actually get down to that detail. They've added options to allow on-the-fly activity codes in work centers. So if you've set up production management, you know you have to set up these things ahead of time, right? Well, now they give you the ability to type one in and then create it, kind of like they do with alias new item codes, things like that. They give you that option to turn that on. Obviously, turning it on or off. Best habits are probably to make them ahead of time, right? But again, options. This was one I really did think was useful, relieve WIP based on percent complete. So let's say that I create a work ticket for 100 chairs, and I say that I'm auto issuing stock and labor to the work ticket. That means all those costs when I release it go into WIP. And then I complete 50 chairs. Well, those 50 chairs would empty WIP out for those 50. The next 50 wouldn't have any cost to them assigned. This option now takes 50%, right? Because it's 50 of 100, so 50% of the costs that are sitting in WIP and puts it to those 50 chairs. So it's a direct relation to the quantity that you said you're going to produce based on the quantity you did actually produce. Okay? So a nice option that was added right there. Explode sub-assemblies. Again, this was a checkbox for the different options. They've moved it to a drop-down. And then they mention when the bill material module is integrated with production management and enhanced scheduling is used, select yes at the explode bill of sub-assemblies field. Now creates work ticket steps for each sub-assembly on the multi-bill level. So it's pulling in the steps related to it and bringing it all together. Again, new feature, use cases, etc. If you do a lot of exploding of sub-assemblies with bills or templates, definitely get with Rick, David, and they can walk you through that. They added the option to recalculate material budgets from the actual material tab. If anyone has to do that, which I know some that do, back on the steps tab, thankfully they have now moved it to this tab so you can easily click it and say, hey, recalculate all my budgets. And then the copy again, 2023, this was a feature added at the same time that 2022 service pack was released. So like there's kind of a duplication going there. You can do a new option to create a work ticket from materials from option. So you can create a work ticket using materials from a bill, work tickets from a template, both bill and a template. So you can choose how do you want materials to be brought into it, and you can combine the bill and a work ticket template. Again, if this is something you use, reaching out to Rick, David with questions, they'll help walk you through it. Next lot number we mentioned before, so I won't dive into that any further. Material lines, we talked about that one. Again, you're seeing like Sage will release 22.5, right? A service packet adds this feature, 23.2 releases at the same time adding the same feature. So a little bit of crossover. In production management, they add an option to edit start and end times and labor entry. So based on your options, like sometimes you couldn't, and so they've adjusted it to give you a little more flexibility on when and when you can't edit start date time stamps. Okay, so this brings me back to the ideas site, right? Because everything we just went through, as Mary said, 30–40% of it came from this. So I cannot encourage everyone enough to go to this and put your votes out there and vote for things. And if there's something you can't find on there, create your own suggestion. Because again, this is what they're using to determine what they're adding, what they're changing, different things like that. So I really highly recommend everybody go to that. Okay, safe harbor statement. So Sage has us put this in there saying that the content within this presentation is proprietary and confidential information of Sage. It's not intended to be shared or distributed to any third party. And I'll let you read the rest of it. And so essentially what they're saying is this is their roadmap. Some of these things may change. They may add something. They may remove or push something, right? But this is what they're saying in the next 2 years, the things that they are focusing on. So defect resolution and maintenance of line. So again, that's all the technical side of it, right? And the 64-bit being default instead of 32-bit. So again, technical side, important for the future of the product. and you're seeing Sage put effort into that this year. Some issues with 32 and 64-bit, et cetera. Compliance with the payroll, tax updates, and the engine that updates that is going to be done. Their cloud and their digital network. So there's a Sage network out there that Sage is building to map transactions between companies that use Sage products to help. And this could be like considered almost like an EDI type thing, but it's all digital. Sage has been working on that for the past couple of years, and eventually here in the next year or two, you're going to start seeing that. They're going to keep working on bank feeds. So in BankRec, you can attach the bank feed from your bank in there to help with bank reconciliation. Let's read through here. SQL for provisioning, not really important to most of you. Support for CRM in that portal. Sage HR integration. So there's an application Sage bought maybe 2 years ago, Cake HR. It's an HR solution, cloud-based. So Sage is writing a full integration with Sage 100 for that. You're going to see usability enhancements, quick completion of purchase orders, and this was the one that I was like, oh, thank God. Delete and merge warehouse. I have some clients that I swear they may have 50 warehouses, right? So the ability to go in and delete, merge those together, that's going to be great. Full product search, autocomplete, audit trails are being improved. They say other to be determined partner customer feedback, going back to those idea sites. That's where they're pulling from. I have sat in meetings where they've talked about some of the things that they want to do over the next year or two. The idea site has fed an idea of potentially seeing some sort of purchase order workflow with approvals. There's been other things that we have talked about that they want to work on. 25, they will work on tying Sage ID into Sage 100. So this will be more of a two-factor authentication. Their network integration, phase 2 will start. Sage Inventory Manager. So again, building an integration to improve the inventory management side of things. Native alerts, phase 1. So that's kind of what I was just talking about. So usability enhancements in FY25, that's going to be their first release because essentially they are writing an approval workflow type process into Sage 100. It was shown in pictures and high level, but it's something that they've mentioned, and I know they are definitely working on. Lot serial number and AR invoice number expansion. So again, usability there because we have clients that need to have longer lot serial fields, be it 30 characters, whatever. And then they've mentioned this, so I'm going to just say that, I mean, I know I've seen it, but I don't know, I don't want to say much more than that other than there's a Sage 100 mobile app, phase 1, to be released in 2025. And then they're going to work on, in 24, 25, they're going to work on some of their improvements around the CRM integration. So again, get on that Ideas website, get out there, let your voice be heard because they are using that. And every time we see features added, well, not every time, but a lot of times it's related to things they're seeing on there. Okay, so it is 10:20. We have a few minutes for questions before our production and warehouse automation portion of the webinar starts, I believe at 10:30. Does anyone have any questions for Mary or I? If so, please put them in the questions part of GoToWebinar. Again, if you have questions you don't want to ask on here, that's perfectly fine. You can hit sagesport@dwdtechgroup.com. If you've worked with one of us, please feel free to reach out to one of us directly as well with any questions you may have. We're here to help. At the end of today, at the end of the different things, we will have a survey. We ask that you do fill it out. It does give us some guidance on what we present, what we talk about, things that we may want to do in the future, okay? And then someone gets a ever so useful Amazon gift card, especially this time of year where we all start buying stuff off Amazon. And so it only takes a couple of minutes to figure that out, to fill it out. And we really do appreciate you taking those couple extra minutes.